Community Viewpoint.
Welcome to Community Viewpoint. I'm John Pawlak, your host once again for this segment, and we're here at the Department of Emergency Management Command Center. We're here with our fire chief, Scott Lewis, who is also the Director of Emergency Management. This will be our second edition of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll be talking to him about that. We've been within the grasp of the COVID-19 for the last three and a half months. We're coming out of the social distancing, and which is actually physical distancing, and we want to look and see how we'll be able to clean our own homes, how we clean our areas that we work, and our homes, our work areas, our cars, our trucks that we drive in. So we're going to be talking about the cleaning products. So with that, I will do the real technical part of this and move this computer over to Scott, who's sitting next to me. So here's Scott Lewis. Hopefully I won't shake too much. There you go. Hi, Scott.
Good morning. How are you, John?
Good. So let's talk about some of the cleaning products. So we know we just can't use a sponge and clean things off anymore. So what I've done also, I've gone to get my information from Canada, because Canada has a tendency not to let politics get stuck with
Sure.
yes.
Sure.
And I want to give you the technical, the scientific portion without the politics. So it's unfortunate, but I seem to get a good feel from the folks up in Canada. So what we have a lot of times, we have the cleaning products that we have to use for COVID-19. It's not just soap and water, but we have to use things like bleach. We mix with that, isopropyl alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and baking soda and things like that. Those are fine, but we put those all together. Sometimes they can have a bad effect. And if you put all those underneath your sink in the kitchen, you're going to have an issue sooner or later. So we'd like to ask Scott, what's the things you should keep under the sink, so to speak, like bleach, the alcohol?
You try not to keep a lot of different solutions in the same areas. You want to make sure they're stored in the original containers, that they're sealed with childproof caps. You want to make certain that if there were to be a spill, that you wouldn't have create a solution that would create a hazardous vapor that could, through inhalation, cause damage to you. You also want to make sure that when you're using said products, you want to have gloves, things like that. You want to make sure you understand exactly what the solution base should be. So that's a lot of material. That's a lot of information. So on the most part, what we should be looking at are things that are already pre-done for us. In other words, the dispensers, utilizing the wipes that are available to us, probably the best cleaning. But even if we're using those to further protect us, make sure we are wearing gloves, some kind of protection, using any type of chemical on your skin, because your skin has a tendency to absorb those types of materials.
We talked prior to the interview about all these different products making all these solutions for COVID-19.
Right.
And you said, why not, since we have these available at the stores now, why don't we just go and buy them?
Right. They're the best things. Now,
Yes.
the counter to that is some of them have been scarce, and
Yes.
the products haven't been readily available to us because there was this mass purchase. It was almost like hysteria purchasing.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the materials were taken off the store shelves and stored in people's homes. So people felt they had to do something. So if they could get bleach, they would start creating their own mixtures, placing them in separate bottles, spray dispensers, things like that, and then utilizing them in their homes. The challenge is you don't ever want to use any one given product as a standalone, because again, that can cause secondary health issues. For example, you wouldn't want to pour bleach on something direct and work it with a bare hand. You wouldn't want to ingest or inhalate bleach or other type of vaporous products. So mixtures, understanding what a mixture should be, or often not, it's a 10% mixture with water will give you the best solution for cleaning just about any surface, but also understanding that bleach can discolor certain materials.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so you don't want to necessarily just use that on everything. Hydrogen peroxide, the same thing. Hydrogen peroxide is a relatively good, stable material, but if we're going to involve contact with skin, then we want to definitely do a solution base. Usually it's a 50% mixture. Again, depending on the materials, the application, understanding what the repercussions could be. Clearly, we don't ever want to mix bleaches with ammonias because they can create very hazardous vapors that can cause severe permanent damage to your lungs. And so what maybe good intentions, the bad execution will have a bad outcome.
Right. The bleach belongs in the above the sink or in the washer and dryer room. There's a cupboard usually in there. And same thing with the hydrogen peroxide.
Right.
Yes. Keep those separate because together you don't know. You'll be.
And we've seen instances where people are using small hand pump sprayers that they can purchase about any store. They're unmarked or usually an opaque type of plastic material, or they're buying bug and insect sprayers, or they use for plants, things along those lines, and they're creating their solutions in those containers, but they're not marking them. So somewhere along the line, someone else will come and use it. Say they have a beautiful garden and they apply that type of material, it's going to destroy their garden. Yes. Whereas yet, if a child comes along, gets it in contact with their skin because they don't understand what the product is inside, they can cause burns. It can cause inhalation injuries, as we discussed.
Right. So covered that pretty well. You mentioned gloves. So another thing about gloves. Gloves for the professional are the best thing that you could have.
Sure.
But for the civilian, it may not be in the same vein because we talked about that also, that studies say that we have a tendency to touch our face with our hands 20 times per minute. So the first time you touch your face with your gloves on, they should be changed.
Aside from handling chemicals, your skin is a natural barrier. It is the best barrier that we have. Mm-hmm. And so in absence of cuts, lacerations, any type of break in the skin, for most part, that is what protects us against viruses in general. Now, aside from chemicals, of course, because chemicals can be absorbed through the skin.
Right.
But if we keep our hands clean, keep them away from our openings into our bodies, which is normally our eyes, our nose, and our mouth. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we've greatly reduced the possibility of spreading the virus from one person to another. Very difficult for anyone to do is keep their hands away from the face.
Oh, definitely.
But, we do it out of habit. Sometimes we don't even realize that we did it, but that is absolutely the best thing we can do, other than the physical distancing that you pointed out, is keep our hands clean and our hands away from our faces.
Exactly.
And people with mustaches and beards have to be even more careful.
Yeah.
I know, but even have to be more careful because anything that's even airborne can be retained in there as almost like somewhat of a net.
Oh, this is true. Yes.
And so you have to make sure you keep your facial hair, things like that, clean as well.
Yes. So I looked at what are some of the most riskiest surfaces. So how can the viruses be transmitted via the surfaces? I was mentioning that the viruses can be spread, as you just mentioned, that when someone touches their mouth, eyes, or nose to now contaminated hands. Then we also talked about how long can the viruses survive on surfaces. That's still up in the air.
It is up in the air. There's been a lot of speculation as far as how long they can live on a rough surface versus a smooth surface, mm-hmm. versus paper type of materials, cardboard, things along those lines, paper, letters, and mail, things along. So we have to be extremely careful. But if we remember the basics and keep our hands clean, we've greatly reduced it. One of the things is that the distribution of masks. One of the ways to test the effectiveness of your mask is to place the mask on your face, hold a lighter in close proximity, mm-hmm. and see if you can blow the flame out on the lighter through the mask. If you cannot, it's a good indicator that mask is going to provide you the necessary protection. I say that, but please be extremely careful on how close you hold the open flame to your mask.
Oh, true.
But it's just another indicator as far as how that material is spread. Wearing a mask is good. but you have to keep them clean. You have to change them, or else you can cause secondary respiratory type illnesses.
Right, and it's worse for the older people like myself. And if you have problems with your lungs, or like I said, if you're weak and if you're elderly, yes.
Right. If you have an exacerbation of a respiratory type of illness, wearing a mask is not always the best solution for you, because you may not get the necessary oxygen saturation exchange that you desire. You can actually build up more of a carbon dioxide, inside your mask. And therefore, you're starting to have an adverse impact on your respiratory tract.
Because my wife is working at an office that they always, she's in her small office. When she's not with patients, when she's out with them, she has the regular the mask here. What is this one's called?
That's just a basic surgical mask.
Okay. But the people are coming in, different doctors and people that may be selling products. They have their own masks now. You wear this mask with something else, you're restricting the flow.
You can, absolutely.
But this looks so cool and stuff. But if you, like you said, you're going to have a buildup of carbon dioxide, and you'll pass out.
It's potentially, yeah.
Yes.
That's why you want to make sure. I also see people not wearing masks appropriately, where they have it strictly over the mouth, but their nose is wide open. And remember, even eyes, it can. One of the best ways to get the influenza is to rub your eyes.
Oh, and
so that introduces the same type of viruses and things like that into the body.
Mm-hmm. So some of the worst things that you can touch are, they've been mentioning, naturally toys, toilets, phones, cell phones. They're disgustingly filthy. Electronics, door handles, bedside tables, television remotes. CDC also recommends cleaning tables, light switches, countertops, desks, faucets, and sinks. In public places, naturally, you should avoid touching surfaces. But there are the certain group of people that do not believe anything that we talk about. I was at, let's say, healthcare partners. I'm not naming any names yesterday. 80% of us, 90% of us had the masks on. But there was one or two couples that came through very proud, no masks on, and you could tell they were proud that they didn't have their masks on. I'm wearing the mask to protect you, so.
One of the simple things you can do when you're in a restroom, let's say it's in a restaurant or another commercial structure, you wash your hands after you use the restroom. Retain that piece of paper towel just for a minute, and most of the trash receptacles are right next to the door. So instead of direct contact, use that paper towel to open the door, close behind you, and discard it as you're walking out. It's just a simple thing to do.
And I learned that by myself too.
So anything you can do to help prevent the spread, because that's truly the key.
Remember, please, to use your masks and stay 6 feet away from the other folks. And we'll see you next week, because I use my mask. All right, bye-bye.